Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of History Hack. This is slightly exciting and we're going to blow you all away now. So we've been advertising for the last week that we were going to bring on a fantastic Napoleonic historian, Zack White, and talk to you about Sharpe, because everybody's imaginations were really sparked talking about the programme. But then we got our stalking heads on with the result that we're joined, hi Zack, by some of the cast. So we're going to call this Sharpe's reunion. Alina, are you excited?
I'm actually really excited. I'm going to stop talking now because I will not stop.
Okay, so we have with
I'm
us.
excited.
Do you know who that is, everybody? That is Jason Salkey joining us. None other than Rifleman Harris. Jason, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And you may be able to hear a very familiar sounding chuckle in the background because, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us the magnificent Sharpe himself, Mr. Sean Bean. Sean, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for asking me, and it's nice to hear Jason's voice again.
We are currently
we're
currently batting around trying to see if we can get Darragh O'Malley to drop in and join us as well. But wow, yeah. Zack, are you excited?
I can't actually believe this is happening.
Let's jump straight in. Sean, how did you get the part of Sharpe?
I got the part because Jason probably knows a little bit more about this than I do. But I believe that there was a football match in the Crimea before I got there, obviously, and I believe Paul McGann was playing football, and he had an unfortunate accident, and I think he did his cruciate ligament. I'm not sure, but I think they persevered and tried, to carry on filming, but it was a pretty bad injury, and unfortunately for him, he had to pull out, and they kind of got in contact with me. And I must say that the night before I actually flew out to the Crimea, that Paul McGann actually rang me, and he was very magnanimous, and I thought it was a wonderful gesture for him to call me and say good luck with it, and watch out for this guy, watch out for that guy.
was Jason on his list? Was Jason on his list?
I'll always remember it. So thanks, Paul. No, Jason wasn't. Well, if he was, I won't. I won't say.
Jason, how did you get the part?
Yeah.
How did I get the part?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to cover the question you asked Bino there.
Okay.
Sorry, Bino is what we used to call Sean, because we loved him so much. So, yeah. So on the first week of our shoot, so I was cast in the part, and I went out to shoot in August of 1992. And I had known Paul McGann before, just personally hanging out. And so it was nice to have him as a friend out there. On the first week, we had our first day off. We went to the beach, and I brought along a football. And we decided to play a little game, cast versus crew. By the way, this is all in my new memoir coming out next year.
Plug it again.
So we're playing a game, cast versus crew. I think Darragh was in goal. I was there, Michael Mears Cooper, Lyndon Davis Perkins, and Paul McGann, and myself. And I remember the ball coming in high out of the sun. No one was near Paul McGann. He went to take it down on one foot, and his other standing leg gave way. So we didn't really know what it was. He thought, well, what's going on? So he went to sit down. We didn't know at all what was going on until the game ended, and we saw that he was in a real bad state with a real ashen look on his face. So we found out, we didn't know he had a cruciate ligament problem, but we found out he was badly injured. We carried on filming for 5 weeks, and he kept on re-injuring the knee. And so Paul one night said, look, I'm going to go home to get this sorted. Because all they'd done is wrap up his knee. No x-ray. There were no MRI scans back then, blah, blah, blah. All he did was wrap up his knee and send him back into work, hobbling into work. After 6 weeks, he said, I'm going home to check it out. Hopefully we'll be back and we'll finish the show. We came back to England. Within 3 days, my agent called saying a chap called Sean Bean has taken the part. And I thought, that sounds very good to me. So I was gutted for Paul, but that was a great result. So since then, in my research, I found out that quite a few luminaries were auditioned. Mark McGann, Paul McGann's brother, Sean, Ian Glenn, Clive Owen, Rufus Sewell, lots of big-time actors. And they overlooked Sean for some reason.
Well, I like Rufus Sewell, but he's too posh. He can't be Rufus Sewell.
Yeah, but no. But he has a kind of hard look on his face. And of course, there is no one other than Mr. Bean, who could have played it. Not Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
Thank you. But anyway, so I got the part. I auditioned for it in May of 1992, and I did not hear a peep about it until July of 1992. So I completely forgotten about the job completely, and I got a call out of the blue saying, "Hello, you're going to Russia for 16 weeks." I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's my story so far.
I want to know from both of you guys, did you guys think that they would make so many episodes at the time?
Sure.
No, I didn't. I think I'm not sure, Jason, but we were there to make 2 or 3. I mean, we made 3, but the second one, which is my least favourite, is called Sharpe's Gold, and it was a bit of a mishmash, that, I think, for insurance purposes or something, but it wasn't a very good episode. It was all right, but it wasn't great.
If I can jump in, Sean, you were contracted to do 2. Sharpe's Rifles and Sharpe's Eagle on the first year.
Of course.
I was contracted to do Rifles, Eagle, and Gold. So when they called force majeure on the project, when Paul gave in, his knee gave in, they were able to act Gold, and it had already been cast with Patrick Malahide, Scottish actor, I forgot his name, Bill Patterson, lots of great actors. So they were contracted, and their wages were decided. That contract had to be scrapped. So when it came around to the 3rd year of Sharpe, they put Gold in, but they couldn't do the same script because they'd already paid the actors. So if they wanted to do that script, they would have had to have coughed up double wages for Patterson, Malahide, la 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 la. Yeah. And so by then they were all in my book.
But they did we did Sharpe's Gold.
We did Sharpe's Gold, but not the original script based faithfully on the book.
Oh.
Yeah, they had to add in El Casco and the Aztec worshipping, skin flaying, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. That's when I fell on all those gold goblets in a cave. And I nicked some brass church candle sticks. I took them home with me.
Oh, right.
Had either of you read the books?
Yes. Before I started, and I found them. They were the main source of inspiration for me. And I also read a book called Rifleman's Handbook. Can you remember that, Jason? It was all about
Rifleman's Handle. No,
a real Rifleman's Diary. But it was
not the
diary.
recollections.
Might be, yeah.
Not the recollections of Rifleman Harris.
I've not got it to hand, but it was. But his books, and we actually incorporated some of Bernard's lines into the script. So that was always a reference point for me, and also other history. And I've always been interested in that period because I think I liked all the costumes and that. So Sharpe was really good for me. I liked all that. But I used to make little toy soldiers. I didn't make them. They were Airfix. I don't know if you remember Airfix, the model company. And I used to paint all the Napoleonic Guard and all the British in Humbrol little paints and put them on a big green board with all fuzzy green trees on it and move them about. So that I was interested from quite an early age. I was when I was about 25.
Yeah. I think it's going to come out the more we record that you guys just had an absolute blast making this. But let's ask our first question because people have been sending in their questions for Zack, our historian. And the first one's quite interesting. It says Wellington's duels with Whitehall and politics during the time. The series touches on it briefly, but how significant was all this arguing with the government and what impact did it have on the campaign?
Yeah, so Wellington has an ongoing battle with both the government and with Horse Guards, which at the time is sort of army headquarters. And he's got genuinely real frustrations. I mean, he needs more men to fight the French because there are about 250,000 French soldiers deployed in Spain at the time. He needs more money to actually pay the troops because they're about 6 weeks in arrears of pay, which is why they're plundering so much, and he needs supplies to keep the army fed. And it's not until 1812, when the major campaign that he's fighting really starts to begin to sort of to produce some defining victories, that he gets that sort of unequivocal support that he needs from the government. And even the government, even the opposition to the government, starts to change tack. And the only way that it can criticise the government for having supported Wellington at all is to sort of slate them for not having supported him enough, which doesn't really kind of win them any favours. But I think some of his anger is also kind of bluster, so that he can kind of get a little bit more autonomy, not sort of operationally, although early on there are some restrictions that frustrate him, but particularly when it comes to things like discipline. It's not until, particularly when it comes to discipline, because it's not until 1812-13 that he sees measures passed in Parliament that he's been talking about since 1809. So there's definitely a battle there, but I think we have to take some of his frustration with a bit of a pinch of salt, because if he was really that angry about the things that he's constantly ranting about in his letters, I think he'd have had the most insanely high blood pressure of anybody. But to be honest, it makes the success of the campaign more remarkable for the fact he's able to keep fighting despite the challenges that he's facing.
Guys, with reference to the series, you had two Wellingtons, didn't you? You had Hugh Fraser, because is it the first one refused to go back to the Crimea to film?
Basically, yeah. He got very ill with something called Giardia lambia, which is like an amoebic dysentery, and he got hit pretty bad. And the company wasn't that good at staying on top of our health issues, and he said, "Look, I'm not going to go back up there. Thank you very much."
Don't blame
to the Crimea.
Yeah. Did either of you?
He didn't like wearing the big nose.
He didn't like wearing the big nose. Was that fake?
Yeah, Hugh. Yeah,
I think you were bigger than Hugh Fraser's. I know that. That's what she said.
I think it was Hugh that had lots of problems with his nose as well.
Oh.
But yeah, I guess they both would have.
Zack, the Portuguese get little or no mention in the TV series and a limited amount in the books. Is that fair?
Well, the makeup artist was Portuguese, Sano.
There you go. That's the representation in the series.
Yeah. Yeah, and we shot.
Yeah,
no, sorry about that. But seriously, yeah, there isn't a great deal of mention of them, is there?
No, Zack.
I mean, they feature a bit more prominently in the books, but I mean, the Spanish and the Portuguese were absolutely vital, and quite often they're sort of written out and forgotten. The Portuguese army was actually retrained by the British, and a third of Wellington's force during the conflict was actually made up of Portuguese troops. At the time, the jury was kind of out about their quality. Some people said, "Oh, they can fight like tigers." And then somebody else turned around and said, "Well, they're lazy brutes who've never been known to perform a gallant act." But historians generally agree that the Portuguese soldiers actually only broke in situations when British soldiers would have done exactly the same thing. So they were a really sort of hardcore element of Wellington's army. On the Spanish side of things, the Spanish army wasn't as good. I mean, there are many problems with morale, supply and training, but it kind of came into its own. But what was really crucial was the guerrillas. That's where we get the term guerrilla warfare from. Some of the guerrillas were just bandits, but others were kind of organised bands doing these sort of hit and run operations. And that's actually the reason why the 250,000 French troops are tied down for so long and they can't combine to kick the British out. So basically the war couldn't have been won without Spanish and Portuguese troops.
A question came in about Sharpe's honour, which is going to be relevant for both Jason and Sean. So it says, could two blokes really have nabbed that much loot in the French baggage train after Vittoria? Bernard Cornwell apparently said in a note at the end of the book that Wellington's boy nicked $1 million and was third into the baggage train. Now, Sean, you didn't do the looting because apparently you were chasing the bad guy. But Jason, apparently you did.
Yeah.
I did. I managed to get I got a few bits of loot. I think it was stuffed in my hat or in my backpack. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think in the books, what happens in the book? Doesn't Sharpe get a bit of that loot?
I think, in the books, I think Sean, if it was
I got
fatal,
those candles too.
yeah,
That was Sharpe's gold.
I think that was a natural reaction for the soldiers, though. I mean, in any situation, there tends to be looting, and it's kind of the bloodlust rising and the relief. And I think I allowed them a certain amount because maybe Alex knows, could be more informed about that. But I believe Wellington allowed some of it. It's hard to control people in that desperate situation. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's age old, isn't it, looting? How realistic was that scenario, though, in the book?
Well, I mean, the loot that they gained at Victoria was absolutely vast because, for context, it's the last big battle that's actually fought in Spain before all of the French forces effectively got out back to France. And they have in their baggage train almost everything that they've sacked from all of the Spanish cities, the royal treasury. So there's a vast amount of wealth. And when they get broken by the British, they just leave it all. They just drop everything and run. So Wellington himself actually got a stack of portraits that had been taken from the royal palaces. And then when he realised, he actually tried to send them back, and the Spanish king said, no, you keep them as a thank you gift. But he was absolutely stealing about the looting because he wanted to use that money to fund the army and solve the army's financial difficulties. And so some of it was actually recovered from the men, and they went absolutely ballistic. And there are accounts of men who, before this point, were really well behaved. They had their bags searched after Victoria. All of the loot was taken away. And after that, they just thought, well, to hell with it. I'm just going to steal and do whatever I can to make mischief.
Sean, this one's for you. A lady wrote in who's really into the uniforms and like the history of the costume and everything, and she wants to know. She's asked about the amount of buttons on these bloody uniforms. How much of a mission was it for X amount of years?
I had quite a lot of buttons, me. I think I had more than anybody else. There must have been about 25. They were like little silver ball bearings that you fitted into a loop, and I had about 25 of them. And then my belt. Well, it's not a belt, is it, Jason? What do you call it? That red thing that goes round.
Like a sash, like a sash belt.
Looks like a pair of. Looks like some curtains with little tassels on. But I mean, that took ages because this lady, Helen, she was a lovely woman, the wardrobe lady, and she had to go around me about 8 or 9 times just to get it on because that's the way you have to do it. So I ended up putting a bit of Velcro on that, and I just clipped it every day.
No, cheats!
But that's the only difference.
But there was also, Sean, the matter of your jacket. Your first jacket was tailored for Paul McGann. And so it was really tight on you, and I had to let it out.
It was a little tight. Yeah. And I had a few. I've got a few at home here. I've got the original, and that I always wore, and I've got a posh one that I wore for like when I went to meet the Prince Regent and stuff like that, and those occasions. But I've got my sword. Here.
Did you get a rifle?
Birmingham. No.
So, Sean, what you're saying essentially is that you basically took everything that wasn't nailed down.
I asked for permission. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I've got my trousers, braces, boots.
In fact, you know what, Sean? I've got a little video of you negotiating to take your sword with Will the Armourer in Portugal, because you were negotiating to get the sword then, I think.
Really? Yeah.
There were 2 swords, the broken one and the one you get presented with that Harper fixes.
Oh, that's nicer as well. Yeah, I don't mind that either. But Will was a bit strict. Will, the armourer, was a bit strict. We had a smashing chap called Richard Moore, who was like an encyclopedia of the Napoleonic Wars, and a lovely guy. From Sheffield, actually, but he was a good man, and he got killed off at one. Well, he got killed off at one point, and he was very upset about it because it meant that much to him.
That's right.
He put his heart and soul into it.
Thought he was killed off.
Yeah, he'd come back, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, we just had to say, look, the people do get injured in Sharpe, and they actually come back sometimes.
Yeah, like Julian Fellows. Julian Fellows.
Julian Fellows. In fact, even Ducot, when we were nicking the baggage train of Victoria, even Ducot was stabbed and killed in that end of that episode, and he came back.
Oh, yeah. Dallas, isn't it?
Came back in the shower.
But Julian Fellows played what would Julian Fellows played at?
He played Captain Dunnett, Major Dunnett in Rifles, and the Prince Regent in Regiment.
Died.
Yeah,
died, didn't he? And then he come back as the Prince Regent with all his makeup on and beauty spots, going, "Oh, darling." I think he preferred that role the most.
And he had no idea. And he had no idea it was him.
No, I didn't.
Guys, we had a question come in. I'm gonna ask Zack seriously in a second. Someone came in and asked about all of the missions and the tasks that Sharpe and his men undertake in the series, asking how realistic they were. But Zack, before you come in and tell us, Sean, did you ever look at a script and just think this is just bloody ridiculous, or did you just love the swashbuckling nature of it?
I loved it. I didn't really kind of question the process. I mean, we did have people, we only had one camera on sticks, and we had people walking round the back of it and coming back on again and stuff like that. But it was not something, I mean, in those days, we didn't have any CGI, and everything was real. And I'm quite proud of that, the fact that it was all real and it was real people, and we're all doing our best. And I thought we created a kind of an image of many people, I hope.
I fell for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what, though? And also they, I know Sean got the script before me, but we would get the script the finished script just before we filmed the episode, because they were working on it all the time. Yeah. But as Sean said, there was no CGI. They were really, really scared of injuring Sean because of what happened with Paul McGann. But Sean was totally gung-ho and up for it. And so was I. So it worked out really well. And Tom was also great at directing action, and he knew where to take. He knew who to ask.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So he knew if something
Tom Clegg.
Tough. Yeah.
Brilliant,
in fact, there's a lovely scene I remember when Sharpe is captured by Ducot and he's in jail, and we dress up as French to go and spring Sharpe from the jail.
Yeah.
And it's me and John Tams dressed in colour with a mask, and we bust open the door, and Sharpe thinks it's the French, so he attacks us. And of course, I got the shit kicked out of me because I was the first one. I was the first one through the door. Yeah. I remember, Sean, you had me by the throat. I was like, "Hey, Sean, it's okay. So all the action was right to the edge. It was fantastic. I've got twisted ankles and burnt hands and bad backs, but nothing too bad. But it was all exhilarating stuff and amazing.
We had good stump guys. We had Dinny Powell and Greg Powell, so we were in good hands with those two. Excellent. Yeah.
And we had great stuntmen, Russian stuntmen too.
They were great Russian stuntmen, fantastic, just fearless and brilliant. Skilled at horse rides, horse stunts and bringing a horse down and stuff like that. They were
falling off buildings. Remember the buildings they'd fall off.
Yeah, I know, incredible. Yeah, they were indeed.
Zack, how accurate are Sharpe's adventures in terms of history?
Yeah, I mean, having heard all this stuff about how realistic the filming was, I kind of feel quite bad in saying that, to be honest, the novels aren't particularly realistic in terms of the missions that Sharpe goes on. I mean, they're a bit like the sort of 19th century equivalent of two-para going in behind enemy lines. And the reality is that you didn't really get operations like that. Occasionally, somebody might be sent out to blow up a bridge or to surprise an enemy unit.
It's Semtex.
Semtex, yeah.
Right?
He said with Semtex.
We blew a bridge up with Semtex, I believe.
We did. Sharpe's Eagle.
Yeah.
Just having a cup of tea with my Sean and my Sharpe mug.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
That's brilliant.
I'll send you one, man. I'll send you one.
All right. Thank you.
You could put it with the sword and the candlesticks and everything else you nicked.
A little shrine.
I've got mine.
But carry on.
Go on, Zack. It's interesting.
Keep telling us.
couple of examples where you do get operations like this. So at the Battle of Talavera, which is Sharpe's Eagle, for those who follow the novels but not the battles, the French do launch a night attack on the British position, and it almost works. They almost kind of get the high ground before they get beaten back. But night operations and things like that, to be honest, you were more likely to just get lost. I mean, there's one account of a night raid where a force is sent out to capture an enemy unit that's posted in a village, and they see this dark shape in front of them. They think it's the enemy, and they start blazing away with their muskets, hit the dirt until daybreak. And when the sun goes up, they find they've been blowing holes in a stone wall. So, to be honest, there is as much glamour as Sean's managed to portray for us.
So, Sean, you've mentioned that you read the books to get an idea of Sharpe, but did you base the character on anyone else historical that you like? Anything else you'd seen or read that you thought, yeah, I want a bit of that in there?
Not really, no.
Did you have you had so much material to work from Cornwell, didn't you, in the books?
I think it was that and doing research and, you know, trying to find out what it was like for a normal, ordinary soldier, which life was very difficult, you know, compared to the people back in Whitehall and in London who were making all the decisions. Same old story, I suppose, but he was just fighting because they were his orders. And he said, you know, he often philosophized on occasions with Patrick Harper, you know, Darragh O'Malley's character, and he said, well, it's not for us to say what we're doing and that, just obeying orders, but it seems wrong sometimes. But I don't think soldiers really question their orders, and there were a distinction between the common soldier and the higher ups, you know, the top brass. But that's where I kind of got my information from the books and from soldiers' diaries and research, that kind of thing. It's a bit like looking at the First World War. Nobody quite knew why we were fighting the First World War.
You might have thought someone with intellectual capability like Rifleman Harris might have questioned those kind of things, but I suppose we knew that Napoleon was a bad dude, and he'd taken over the whole of Europe, and that Portugal was our biggest, oldest ally, and they were about to. In fact, as all of our trade was about to be cut off. Really, that's why we had to get started. But for me, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and ask if did you have any memoirs that you worked with for your part?
Right. Oh, yes. Well, I'm lucky, luckier than Sean, because of course Sean came to the party a little bit late. So I had 2 weeks of classroom with Richard Moore, the guy Sean just mentioned, our military advisor. And he took us through all of the Napoleonic War. I had no idea of Napoleonic War. I knew Wellington, Napoleon, and Waterloo. That's it. Didn't know the date of Waterloo even. I was more interested in World War II. I'd gone to school in America, so I was into Vietnam and the Korean War, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea. But as soon as I got into Sharpe, I just got sucked straight in. Yeah. But the big thing about what captured my imagination was Richard Moore telling us that we were soldiers who could think for ourselves and who could be left to fight on their own. That's why our hair could be a bit longer, our jackets are a bit ragged. And we are the forerunners of a modern British army, and if you will, like an SAS. So that really captured my imagination, and that's how I looked at it. I thought, we are super soldiers. Yeah. And I'm protecting my buddy next to me and my commander Sharpe, and that's where it starts.
They operated as their own unit, you know, a smash and grab kind of thing. Yeah, guerrilla warfare, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that element.
Yeah, Jason, you're my kind of man if you're into 20th century history. So,
excellent. I'm an infant in terms of no.
Zach, just a couple of things. Firstly, is there an officer, someone wants to know, in the Peninsular Campaign that does resemble Sharpe? We're talking a lot about the role of Sharpe's rifles in the programme, but what was their role in reality?
Sure. I mean, I've been scratching my head quite a lot about this, trying to sort of think about if there's one person that sort of represents Sharpe. And I think probably like a lot of good figures in novels, it's sort of a fusion of different people. Personally, the Mirror sometimes puts across, back in 2005, they did an article that was meant to be a big reveal about, we found the equivalent of Sharpe, and they named Sergeant Ewart of the Scots Greys, who was a cavalry sergeant. But to be honest, the only link there is that he was promoted from the ranks and took a French Eagle at Waterloo. And of course, the parallel being that Sharpe's captaincy is kind of consolidated around having taken a French Eagle at Talavera, fictiously. Personally, I prefer a comparison with Patrick Masterson, who was an Irishman from the 87th of Royal Irish Fusiliers. He was actually the first person to capture an eagle. He did that at the Battle of Barossa in 1811 and got promoted for it up to ensign, and then ended up as a captain. So he managed to stick it out when quite a lot of people couldn't, because of the expense of being an officer and the stigma attached to it. When you look at sort of the womanizer element, I hope John won't mind me saying that Sharpe, at least in the novels, is a bit of a womanizer. August Schaumann was a commissary from the German contingent who, if his memoirs is be believed, spent half of his time in bed rather than doing what he was actually meant to do. But in an odd way, I kind of like a comparison with a bloke called Admiral Sir Home Popham, who seems to have been a bit of a nutter. I mean, he launched this sort of completely unsanctioned raid on Buenos Aires after taking the Cape of Good Hope, as you do, But in 1812, he's deployed to the north coast of Spain with a flotilla, and he spends the summer of 1812 launching diversionary attacks into the north of the country to keep the French in that region unoccupied. So they spend their time marching up and down the north coast of Spain, sort of trying to march faster than a ship can sail. So in terms of trying to find somebody who does what Sharpe did, if you like, he's probably the closest, although obviously with a knighthood, he's not exactly kind of promoted from the ranks.
Yeah, I feel with the 95th Rifles, they have a great press. They're a new unit. They have a new weapon in the form of the rifle rather than the musket. They look different because they're in green coats rather than the usual red for the British Army. And they have more memoirs than almost any other unit. We've got Jason here, who plays the part of Rifleman Harris. Rifleman Harris was a real person. And they're kind of your 19th century snipers in a way. And during the Peninsular War, they're absolutely dependable. They are a great unit. They're deployed with the Light Division, and they're involved in skirmishing activity, sort of picking off enemy skirmishers and officers to try and unsettle the enemy formations as they sort of advance. But I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say that I think their significance has been slightly overplayed. They're still important, but I don't really think that they're quite the be-all and the end-all that we've made out. Nick Lipscomb makes the point that the rifle as a concept is more of a sort of force multiplier. And I think that's a much better way of thinking about it. They have the special training. The weapon is much better than the usual musket. It's lethal at 300 yards rather than the usual 80 yards. But it has drawbacks because it's muzzle loaded and you get one shot before you have to reload. And the whole point about the rifle is that the bullet is wrapped in leather to allow it to grip the rifling that gives it the spin, that gives it that greater accuracy. And that obviously takes more time to force the bullet down the length of the barrel. So whilst a musket can manage 2 to 3 shots a minute, the rifle, to be honest, you'd be lucky to do 2 to 3 shots in 2 minutes if you're loading with the leather wrapped bullet. And in that time, the enemy can kind of close up and kind of outweigh the advantage that you gained. They also have an impressive service record because they are on the front line throughout 1810 when they're observing the French army. They're at almost all of the major sieges and battles. But I don't think they're quite this sort of uniquely special band of brothers that we've made out. A lot of the units have really great service records, can be completely relied upon. And when you compare the desertion rates and the trial statistics for the rifles, they're actually slightly worse than a number of other units in the army. And I feel really bad kind of saying that very at the moment. I kind of feel like I've ruined the party here.
Boo, Zack, boo.
I was going to say, blow our gig, man. You're going to blow our gig.
Everybody hates me now. You're going to get a whole load of hate mail for this, aren't you?
Yeah, probably no, because
we have... Cut that all out, Alex.
We have Sean and Jason, so we probably won't get hate mail. Maybe you will, but we won't.
Just send it straight to me.
Yeah.
The ladies are safe. The ladies are safe.
Yeah. Sean, how did you find the whole, I'm guessing as an actor, it might have been, if you're a single, young, free and single, it might have been quite cool to have all that womanising in the script.
Yeah. It wasn't me yet. I wasn't womanising. They kind of latched onto me, if you watch it closely.
So you were just an innocent man going about his business.
Yeah, absolutely. I had more important things on my mind.
I can attest that Sean is not a womanizer. I can attest that. And the character absolutely is. The character is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that was, a bit of artistic license there, because they needed to get, a kind of, a female representation, and often represented a little bit cliche, but I guess they had to get Liz Hurley in.
Yeah.
That must have been really hard for you, Sean.
Well,
she is a beautiful lady.
Pete Postlethwaite.
Pete Postlethwaite, yeah.
Pete
a little story about Liz. Before we carry on to Pete. When we first met up with Liz, she came onto our floor, the lads, me, Linda, and a couple others, and she looked very worried. And we're saying, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't think Sean Bean fancies me." I said, "Don't worry, darling. He's just like that. He's a quiet lad. Don't worry. We all fancy you, though. I fancy you. Don't worry. It's cool."
Sean, what were you going to say about Pete Postlethwaite?
Oh, Pete, God bless him. It was so fantastic to have him involved in it. He was an old friend of mine. I'd worked with him before, and he just brings such life and realism to the part. And certainly as Obadiah Hicks, well, he was such an essential element for us, kind of in the midst of the shows, and a character that will be missed, and a man that will be missed, I'm sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I also had worked with him before on a play for quite a few months, so it was great to have him. In fact, I know I'm blowing my own trumpet a million times during this talk, but when we were in the throes of ending the first series, we were up and shooting Sharpe's Eagle, and there was no guarantee that this was going to be a success, and we'd spent a lot of money in an insurance claim, so ITV were miffed at Sharpe for taking them into the red, and I had read all the books onwards, and I sat in the bus waiting to go up to set with Malcolm Craddock, who had a copy of Sharpe's Enemy, and I said, "Oh, you got Sharpe's Enemy? There's only one actor in the whole world that can play Hazel. It's Pete Postlethwaite." And he goes, "Okay, yeah." So that summer between Sharpe's 1 and 2, I got a call from Pete, and he said, "Hey, Jason, I've been offered the part." I said, "Gags, and they took my advice. Great. How much money shall I ask for?" I was like, "Well, okay." And then we got back on set the following year. I said to Malcolm, "Hi, Malcolm. Oh, good to see you took my advice." He goes, "What are you talking about, Jason?" And that was Malcolm. Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about, Jason. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, what a fantastic character. They were very upset that they killed him off, even though he gets killed in the books.
Yeah, I bet they were.
So
really upset at that.
Someone has asked, now I fear you guys may have given the impression of being a little bit grubby on set in Sharpe, because someone has come in and asked, what's the question, Alina? But this is for Zack, isn't it?
This one is for Zack, but I'm thinking quite a few ladies are going to want to know the answer to this from Sean. So, no comment. So, how often did they get to change clothes and bathe?
Yeah.
All right.
No, we were going to ask you guys as well. We were going to say, I would hate to think that you lot had the same uniform for the entire series run, and that you maybe got to change clothes. Yeah. I suspect Zack's going to say that the actual guys didn't get to change that often.
We crossed a lot of rivers, so we had a bit of soap. I mean, we did have access to water, and I think there's a scene of me actually washing in one. It's a bit of a, what we call them, gypsy.
Yeah, they did have a spare. They had a spare uniform for when we had to cross the river or when we got extra muddy. And sometimes they couldn't really wash our jackets. They were wool. Yeah. Wool, you couldn't really do it. But the trousers, I think, did get a little bit of a wash. But he did have a spare pair. But no, they was pretty stinky after a while. Some of it, yeah.
In reality, Zack, how does that match up with the reality?
to be honest, that sounds pretty similar to the reality of what the troops had at the time. I mean, you could smell an army during this period before you actually saw it. I noticed when I was reading the questions for this online that somebody had asked how often they got to change their underwear. And to be honest, they didn't actually have any underwear. So I know the origin of Go Commander is kind of the 70s and the Vietnam War, but perhaps we should really call it sort of Going Redcoat. They only had one uniform. They had a spare shirt, but most of the time the troops just sold that off for wine and food because their rations were just completely inadequate and they needed something to supplement what they were eating. But that uniform got pretty ragged. I mean, Bernard Cornwell makes the point in his books about how Sharpe's troops keep kind of repairing the uniforms with brown cloth. And so in that sense, it's another one of those points where he's quite realistic at getting the gritty little details right. But they were expected to keep kind of vaguely clean. If you didn't keep yourself clean, then you could be flogged for it. Although there's a great description of one guy who didn't keep himself clean. And so rather than put him on trial and have him flogged, his mates decided they were going to get together and dunk him in the horse trough and just scrub him until he was completely clean. And beyond that point, he did what he was meant to do.
But, yeah, that's what they had to do when I got back.
Definitely.
Been away for a long time, Sean. Yeah.
Smells like it too.
Let's.
Yeah, it was.
Go on, Sean.
I mean, we were lucky. We got his shirts washed every day, didn't we, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I don't know about you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'm not bothered about it.
You were clearly special.
Yeah.
When it was really hot, I wouldn't wear a shirt. I'd just button up the tunic.
Yeah.
So I would let the sweat sort of hit me.
God, wasn't it hot?
Oh. Yeah, and then after a while that would kind of cool down. So, and I would be commando all the time. Basically, I would be.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I would commando the whole 5 series.
We went through the whole seasons really because we got there in August and it was boiling hot in the Crimea. Yeah. And then, we weren't coming back. Didn't get home till Christmas Eve. So we went through all the winter there and, extreme temperatures. But it was good because it was realistic, And
absolutely.
We were really making do with things, weren't we? And doing the best we could over there in terms of food and this and that, whatever. And it was kind of gives kind of authenticity to what we were doing.
Yeah, because we were hungry, we were hungry because the food, although the food was probably okay, looking back on it, we didn't fancy it at all. So we lost a bunch of weight.
We were.
And it was really hot, so we were sweating. So
yeah. And
we
used to get his wife.
Experience.
Yeah.
His wives used to send suitcases, didn't they? And food, and I used to have that space food where you get in that like alcan foil, that and aluminium foil, and you boil it or something, and then you eat bacon and eggs and stuff in a packet.
But we were lucky to have the dollar shops. Remember the dollar shops up at the Alta Hotel?
Yeah.
And you could buy Western goods. Yeah. No, you had to use dollars there, not coupons.
Oh no, we went to the market to get coupons, didn't we?
Yeah.
You could use coupons at the market.
Yeah,
I've got a hammer
with the local currency.
I've still got a little hammer at home from a market, and it cost half a pence. And I use it every day.
What do you use it every day on? It's just randomly. Sorry,
stuff. Brilliant.
Hammers come in handy. What's the caviar?
Lord, that.
If you've still got tins of it, they might come in handy now.
What, the caviar?
Yeah, during the lockdown.
Any food.
Oh, yeah. It's they went years.
But Sean, wasn't being on lockdown a bit like being on Sharpe in the Crimea? A little bit, wasn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah. We were all we were all housed in a sanatorium, weren't we?
Yeah. And we didn't really at first we didn't know where to go. We couldn't leave the grounds. We sort of stuck to ourselves. Remember, that was a bit like now, isn't it? It's a bit.
It is, yeah. We just knew each other, and that was it. We were all, and then we just went off to working. They took us to work in them vans, and
and then we might come back and have a drink or two, maybe.
Yeah.
You make it sound like rock and roll.
We only got Sundays off, didn't we? We worked 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Long hours, and we only got Sundays off and straight back in again. So Saturday night.
Sounds like me and Alex right now.
Yeah, it sounds like us doing this podcast.
Yeah.
But it was that forced together sort of remoteness that made Sharpe. I mean, exactly. and the starving, of course, and the dirty clothes and the shitty food
and the illness.
And the illness.
I remember John Tams, who suffered greatly from that. And hello, John, if you're listening to this, me old mucker.
Yes. Hi, Johnny.
Good old friend of mine, and we had some brilliant times together. John, so just want to mention him. He's a great guy.
John Tams. John Tams is instrumental because on the first Sharpe, they were a few minutes short for a scene, and he wrote the scene where I say, "I can read, sir. I'm a courtier to my Lord Bacchus," and John wrote that whole scene. So
he was brilliant with dialogue.
Yeah,
and music, of course. I mean,
of course. Well,
all the music.
So John Tams is integral to the whole Sharpe bit of You can take me out easily, no worries, but not Hagman. No way.
Oh, that's not true, Jason. Zack, I think Zack is massively impressed by how realistic your experience of the Napoleonic Wars was in filming, by the sounds of it. But Zack, Alina, her dad has got a question for you.
Yeah, my dad's actually been messaging me the whole time going, "Oh my God, please put this question in for me," because obviously we're Polish, so obviously I'm going to bring up a Polish question right now. So he asks, were the Polish Lancers much of a threat to Wellington's troops?
Oh, blimey. To be honest, that's one thing I wasn't actually ready for. The Polish Lancers, they're not a big issue for Wellington, and I think actually that's probably true of cavalry generally. Wellington wanted more cavalry, but then he wanted more of everything, and he manages to make do with what he's got. He's never sort of massively worried, particularly during the Peninsular War. I mean, Waterloo is a little bit different because cavalry plays a much more kind of central role in a particular phase of Waterloo, where you have a British cavalry charge that gets too carried away, goes too far, and then gets cut off by French cavalry, including some lancers. But that's kind of an isolated incident. And I think, to be honest, Wellington's more concerned with the fact that the British cavalry is reckless. So if anything is keeping him awake at night, it's not the Polish lancers, it's just the fact that he can't trust his own horsemen to kind of rein themselves in.
Cool. Right, let's just end with some questions for you two guys about the series. If we do just take it in turn. So, Sean, you already mentioned that the episode that was your least favourite to make and maybe watch back, I don't know if you watch yourself, is Sharpe's Gold. Why is that?
It was, I just thought it was a bit of a mishmash, really. It was, I had too many girlfriends in it for a start. And it all became a little bit of what they call a Barbara, Mills and Boone kind of a bit blousy episode, and so I wouldn't say I still think we did a good job, but I think it was, as Jason was mentioning, the insurance that they had to cobble something together, so it kind of suffered the artistic loss of that. But that's that, and we went on to do much better things.
You know what else I found out, Sean?
Yeah.
About who wrote the new script of Gold. The guy called Nigel Neal.
Yeah.
Do you know what else he wrote? Do you know what else he wrote?
No.
He wrote the Quatermass stories. He's obviously a very old dude. So no wonder Gold was a weird, spooky kind of story.
Yeah,
he wrote Quatermass.
Strange one.
Yeah, and he also wrote one of the Halloween scripts. So he was a kind of freaky horror writer.
Yes.
That's why it had that flavor.
I suppose he had a hard job to do. I mean, they'd given him a, they said, get this together and do this and do that. So he probably had his hands tied to some extent.
Yeah.
Sean, what was your favourite episode?
I think Sharpe's Rifles was my favourite. It's so raw and rugged and cold, and it's quite violent. And I thought that was one of the most realistic episodes, and I like Sharpe's battle as well. I thought that was great. That was the siege of Baderhof, I believe. And
Baderhof was company.
Yeah. Oh, battle. Yeah, that's it. Sharpe. I like Sharpe's battle. I don't know, but I like Sharpe's company was a good one, wasn't it? It was written by quite an old guy who was a famous writer. He wrote Waterloo, didn't he? Did he write the film?
Yeah, Charles Crichton.
Was it? Yeah,
Charlie Crichton.
Yeah, but I thought that one was great with the siege of Baderhof, because that was cold and we were shooting knives for like 3-4 weeks in a row, and it was just a war of attrition to get through it.
I think the boom up fell down the hole. Remember, injured his shoulder. Do you remember?
Oh, Saint.
Yeah. Last night he fell down the breach and did his shoulder. Yeah, but company. I also love Rifles and Eagle, and I love those early first 2 series.
Yeah.
When there are lots of chosen men together running around, but definitely Rifles is fantastic.
Great, isn't it? Yeah, I like that.
So, gentlemen, how important has your role been in terms of your careers?
Sure.
Well, it's been, it was very important for me, and it was something I didn't really know much about. I mean, I didn't really know about Sharpe, and I knew a little bit about Australia, a small amount, not so much. I mean, that kind of, I wasn't quite sure of the premise at first, and I don't think I was sure till I got on the plane with Jason and go what it was all about. Then we got to Crimea, and it was dark, but it looked like the French Riviera when you first arrived. But I mean, it was a bit dilapidated at the time. It's a lovely place now, but and I guess it was then in some ways. But it had of course, a positive effect on my career, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world when I look back at it on hindsight. I think about it quite a lot, and I think about all the people that were involved and the crew. Wonder what they're doing now, and it's a long time ago, 1992, and I have very, very fond memories, and it kind of made you grow up a bit as well in those conditions and under that kind of pressure to get things right and to survive and to live sensibly in those conditions. And it teaches you to grow up, and it maybe self-sufficient in a way, because you're looking after yourself, you look at the others around you, and in terms of my career, it was a good time. Obviously, it helped me get on the parts, and some other soldiers. So, but I look back on it, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the company I was with. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Jason?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm possibly the richest man to have come out of Sharpe, because I have a wife, and our son was generated on Sharpe. So in many ways, I have that. I'll have to say that it's been terrible for my career, though. But that can happen to an actor, regardless.
But you're not married to Liz Hurley, are you?
I am not. I'm married to a much more beautiful woman than that.
Yeah.
She's the most beautiful girl in Yalta. Her name's Natasha.
Yeah.
She was thank you, Sean. She was an interpreter on the show, and she was on all 3 years of the Crimea, and then she also came out to be with us. But I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't go back and change a thing, about Sharpe. I know I'm kind of an ambassador for Sharpe as I am now, because I have diaries, I've written a book, so I'm not ever going to complain about what's happened to me since Sharpe, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, but I think everything you do is great, and I've been meaning. So when this came up and they told me you were going to be on, I think great, because you do a great job. It's riveting, and it's really brings back memories, fantastic memories. So. Well done.
Fantastic, man. I'm so happy you said that. That makes me feel really great. Yeah. Fantastic. Great.
Oh,
anyways,
really
Alex, thank you for indulging me.
Okay.
I'm almost welling up. I'm so hard. I'm such a hard man.
So, but for a football game, we might not have been here. Speaking of football, Sean, well done Sheffield United this season. No matter what happens with this, they've been excellent, haven't they?
Yeah. Yes, they really have. We've got a fantastic manager in Chris Wilder, the Messiah. And he's, we seem to have got it together, so we've done amazingly well. I'm very proud.
Sean, this is a really unprofessional request, but would you be so kind as to say hello to my mum Louise and Alina's mum Sophia before they disown us?
Hi, Sophia and Louise.
God,
my mum is going to be so happy.
My mum's probably shrieking in the next room. Thank you so much. Oh, and I did have, and I can edit this out if you don't want to do it, but my co-author on my war books, I don't know if you know, but it's a thing on YouTube. There's all these compilations of you saying the word bastard in your fantastic accent. And he said, could I get you to say it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. What bastard?
Oh, that'll do. Brilliant. There you go, Holmes. Yeah, that was the only thing he wanted. No intelligent question, no nothing. Can you get him to say bastard? Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been an absolute blast reliving Sharpe with
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much. Go on.
I just want to say, just wanted to mention our director, Tom Clegg, who died some years ago. He was a fantastic guy, wasn't he, Jason? And
absolutely.
If it wasn't for him, I don't think we'd have got through it. And the same goes for Muir, who died recently, and Malcolm Craddock. So it was a sad time for the last couple of years with all the main guys dying, who put it all together in there. So my condolences and God rest their souls,
And they've left you something to be completely proud of, though, and looking at the reaction of people when we invited them to ask us questions about the series, people still love it. So they really have left us a lasting legacy, as have you.
Legacy. And, they really are.
And thank you so much, Zach, as well.
They were determined, man. Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, if I can just add this in, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I was at a talk a couple of years ago that Bernard Cornwell gave. And one of the questions he was asked afterwards was about kind of the voices that he had in his head. And he said, amongst other things, that you were kind of perfect for the role, and it changed how he heard Sharpe's voice when he wrote the later novels, because originally he was a Londoner. But in effect, you guys sort of shaped the later novels, because now when he writes or when he thinks about Sharpe, he always hears a Yorkshire accent.
Yeah, because it was quite a big jump, from a East End Cockney to a gritty Yorkshireman.
Oh, it works as a gritty Yorkshireman.
He went with it, and I'm glad he adapted it.
You are the grittiest of Yorkshiremen, Sean.
Oh, why, thank you.
Can I ask you one question? Why weren't you in the Full Monty? Because that was made for you.
I was.
It was set in Sheffield. Oh, they must have.
Good looking. He's too good looking for it.
Yeah.
They needed ugly mugs for it, not Sean.
This is true. Brilliant.
Film, though. At least Robbie Carlyle wears a Blade shirt.
Yeah, that's true.
The right thing there, isn't it? He's got his head screwed on in that coat.
I do love Robert Carlyle. He's awesome.
His accents are awesome, but he's not Sean Bean as a Yorkshireman.
Do you remember when I wore the Blade shirt, Sean, when in the FA Cup at the Heights, at the pub, at the Muswell Hill Heights?
Oh, yeah.
And you got me to wear a Sheffield top. The only time ever.
Yeah, but no, that's great. We were just actually talking on football history the other day about Sheffield United battering us in the FA Cup final in 1915, 3-0.
15, yes. And then did we steal Fatty Folkestone, or did he go to them after us?
Oh, I can't remember.
The big goalkeeper.
Well, no, we had Fatty Folkes for quite a few years, and then he went to Chelsea. Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
I've got his cup. I've got his shirt, mate.
Wow.
His goalkeeper shirt.
Wow.
And it's massive. It's like a 10. Honestly, it's that big. And I've got his FA Cup winners medal. No.
Oh, wow.
I bought some, so maybe Chelsea are interested.
Very good.
A lot of money, that bloke, isn't he, your boss?
We'll talk to Roman Abramovich.
Yeah. Have a word, Jason.
He's got a few, Bob, yeah. Have a few words in Russian.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell him.
I know.
Jason, you're in London, is that right? And how are you coping with being locked down?
It's fine. I've got a garden and my street is deserted. It's like a cul-de-sac, so I can go out there. But I also have to take my mum for walks because she's 85 and she has dementia. So I have to go out and take her for walks. So I'm actually all over the place, really. But I wear a mask and gloves when I do it.
And Sean, how's everybody there? All healthy?
All right, touch wood, yeah. You know, we kind of keep into ourselves, not really going out at all. And I'd go in the garden, you know, I've got quite a big garden, so I spend a lot of time in there. And, you know, so we just pass along, play with my soldiers and things like that in the cellar.
Okay. We hope very soon to bring you a second Sharpe's reunion involving all of the chosen men, or as many of them as we can get hold of. So stay tuned for that. We also do now have confirmation that we will be interviewing Johan Gruffnid, Hornblower, about that series. And there's some more exciting stuff to come on that soon. Tomorrow, join us to hear Ian McGregor talking about his book Checkpoint Charlie and the building and the destruction of the Berlin Wall and where it fits into history. It's a really interesting interview. Until then, stay safe. If you possibly can, stay at home. This is Nighthawk signing off.